Hey guys, Lockie from Focus Performance Training. So, piggybacking off my last video, which was flexibility, mobility, and how do we improve it, I'm going to dive into now one of the most common ones I see, one of the most common restrictions I see for squatting being ankle mobility. I'm going to go through sort of in 5 parts, break down to the four W's and a H. So, what, when, where, why, and how, as to what we can do for our ankle mobility to improve it for squatting. Now, the why behind why you want to improve ankle mobility, for squatting in particular, a greater angle at the ankle is going to give us a much more upright torso. So we see this when we're working, or you see this with Olympic weightlifters. They wear a weightlifting shoe which has quite a big heel. Most shoes have a 3/4 inch heel. Some shoes have a big 1 inch heel when you look at your Chinese weightlifters. What this does is it allows the knee to travel further forward over the toes. This then allows for a much more upright torso, so then we can receiving a barbell either on the front in our shoulders for a clean or overhead for a snatch. We're in a much more upright position, which means there's a much smaller moment arm on the lower back, and we're using much more quad than we are hamstring. What tends to happen if someone's got really poor ankle mobility and their shins are bolt upright because their knees can't translate forward, is we tend to see the torso position angle a lot more further forward to compensate for this. So this is a big limiting factor. When we look at athletic performance and we look at implementing squats, it is my opinion, and it's not this is everything I do with these videos. It's just, this is my interpretation of research and best practice and how I'd implement it or how I do implement it. So it's not right or wrong, this is just how I do things. So when I'm working with athletic populations, if they're squatting, and if I'm trying to build leg strength or build mobility through a squat, I'm most likely going to be getting into high bar squat. Now the reasons for this is twofold. There's a higher athletic crossover, high bar squatting versus low bar squatting, purely because of joint angles, torques at certain joints, and what joints we're predominantly using. In a high bar squat, there's a much greater quadricep moment arms, which means we use our quads a whole lot more. In a low bar back squat, we've got a much bigger torso angle. It's much more recruitment of the posterior chain and the glutes. Now how this carries over, when you jump, what do you use? Majority quads, and then your glutes, and then your calves fire as well to drive off the ground. You don't see that same firing pattern or the same sequence in a low bar squat, okay? So that's the why. And also, I'm a weightlifter, my athletic pursuit is in weightlifting, so I see high bar back squats as a much greater carryover. Okay, so when we're squatting, when I'm teaching squatting, we want good knee translation over the toe, so we can have a more upright torso, so we can have a safer torso, more power output when we translate it over to stuff like vertical jumps and sprinting. Okay, so when do you want to do your ankle mobility? Now this is a very, very personal thing. If I know someone's got really poor ankle mobility, I'm probably going to have it in their prep, in their movement prep before they're coming into the warm-up. It's probably going to be in some rehab or some accessory work as well. So I'll throw it in as accessories after, in the caveat being that we use that ankle range of motion in that accessory or prehab conditioning sort of circuit or module that I'll prescribe to them. You can do it afterwards as a warm down to make sure we're getting more range of motion when your ankles feel tight. However, you need to make sure that we're using that range of motion straight away, otherwise we're just going to regret. We're just going to move back to where we were before we spent 20 minutes working on ankle mobility. Okay? The what? Okay, so this refers to what are we going to use and what muscles are targeting or what areas we're targeting. Obviously, if we're looking at the ankle joint, we're going to be targeting areas and the sort of soft tissue around the ankle. That being your soleus mainly, your gastroc, and then you've got the ones people don't tend to think about being the front of your shin, mainly being tibialis anterior. Now if tibialis anterior is really jacked up and tight, it's going to contract as we come forward and it's not going to have a full range of motion. So if that muscle is quite short on the front, because it's going to act concentrically in that it's going to shorten to pull our knee forward because it helps in dorsiflexion. So dorsiflexion is pulling our toe back towards our head, and plantar flexion is putting our, or planting our foot to the ground. So it's going to help and mainly work in dorsiflexion. If that muscle on the front of our shin is really tight and can't contract properly, that's going to restrict the amount that we can actually pull ourselves into dorsiflexion. So we'll target those three, and the fourth one would mainly be sort of ankle range of motion and impingement at the front of the ankle. Okay, so when we do it, we want to load those structures. We want to load them in an extended or an eccentric position. So a big one for me for test retest is go through a knee to wall. So put your foot, pull it away from a knee, put your thumb just in between, put your whole fist like so, in between your big toe and the wall, and then drive that knee back and forth. Now that's really sort of what I want to be aiming for. Another good way to do it, get some strapping tape, place it off the wall, get a measuring tape, and measure it off. So for example, if this was the wall here, put strapping tape here and mark it every centimetre. Alternatively, this is where, excuse the crude drawing, this is where your thumb would be, okay? With your foot being here, like so, and then your knee aiming to come into the wall, like so. I am not a good artist, as that's really not good at all. So this would probably come like that, and then off there for your knee, okay? That's what we're aiming for with the knee to wall test. I'm not a good artist, my dad was very good. I unfortunately didn't get those genes. Oh well. So that's a good test at the start. Now from there, we can actually use that test to improve mobility. Now one way that I like to do it is grabbing a kettlebell. Now I've got a kettlebell right here. And what we can do is if we jack our foot up onto a high surface like so, we can have that foot loaded there, have the kettlebell loaded on top of the knee, and then we can drive that knee forward, getting a stretch through mainly soleus, because gastroc is a multi-joint muscle, which means it crosses the knee and crosses the ankle. So if we can load that there, we're going to really work on soleus, which is a deeper muscle, and we can open that up. So we can spend time there. We can actively, instead of just hanging here, sit up, get our foot in a nice strong position, and pull our ankle into that range of motion as far as we can. Come out, relax, pull in. So we're actively trying to get some muscular contraction and get some actual work in the back of that leg and trying to pull ourselves into end range. Now, if you feel a pinch in the front of your ankle, that can be a result of the bones in the front of your ankle just here not working, not sliding properly, because there's lots and lots of bones in there, and they work as if sort of in the same way in the arch of your foot, like in, the old English arches in the bridges. They join them all together, and then there'll be one keystone, and that'll hold it all together nice and tight. They work in a similar way in our foot. So when those bones aren't moving and translating properly over each other, we can actually get an impingement through the front of our ankle here. And this is when you see a band placed just here, which will pull back in this direction. What that does is it helps that translation. It's really important here that we move our knee back and forth like I was doing with the kettlebell on my knee then, so that we can try and promote that sliding. It's not really useful if we just hang out in this end range position. We're not going to achieve a whole lot, we're just going to hang on the joints. We need to move back and forth, promoting good movement, because we're not just hanging there. We're actively moving in and out of the range of motion. Another good one I like to do is sitting in the bottom of a squat, barbell across the knees, drive across one knee with a barbell, push it down, again, pull into that range of motion, come back, change sides. We're also getting time in this one in a squat. Okay, so there, some real go-tos I like. If you're having problems with gastroc, then we look at more eccentric loading stuff where we're going to stand up nice and tall, drop that heel down, go down for a count of say 4 or 5, pull ourselves into that bottom position, and then come back up. So we're going to get a nice big stretch. And because gastroc will be used more likely then, because our leg is extended, which means it's on stretch. So we're getting more sort of, the gastroc is getting used more than it would when knees in flexion. Okay, so that's what we're going to use for that. We can use kettlebells, we can use barbells, we can use dumbbells. Even if you feel like you get somewhat benefit from foam rolling and trigger point work, so putting a trigger point ball or foam roller on there if it's really tight, roll it out 10-20 seconds, maybe 30, then jump up straight away, load the position, pull yourself in a position, come out, test your knee to wall, and go through a squat and see how you feel. Don't be afraid as well to throw a plate under your heel, because what that will do is it'll allow for greater knee translation, so we can get into a better position. We can really groove that pattern. All right. So where obviously back of the leg, sort of through that posterior part of our lower leg, gastroc, soleus. We can even look into the deeper muscles being posterior tibialis, or through because they can get quite tight as well, especially if you're doing lots of running, change of direction, like for example you're playing touch on a Tuesday night. That's me, by the way. I don't play very well. Okay, so That's then when, before training, why, we got that, how, sort of went through that as well when we look at the what muscles and how we're going to work around it. Okay, so as an example, what you could do before, if you've got really tight ankles before your squat, you've noticed it and you sort of want to get more range of motion, check your knee to wall. So go through, put the tape measure down, or try with your hand and your fist and your thumb like so. This is sort of the gold standard. If you look at some of Dr. Aaron Horschig stuff, so Squat University, he's really big for that test as well. And I tend to agree with it. Okay, do that before, spend 2-3 minutes grooving that pattern, trying to load that position, come out of it, go through your knee to wall, go through your squats, see how you feel, okay? Another good way we can do that is we can spend time loading. So a really good thing that I like to do to program and to help load the position and get better ankle mobility, I like to do split squats, okay? I do split squats with my lifters on so I can really focus on driving my knees far forward. So I'm getting really good load. So I'm getting like maybe 70, 80 kilo in a split squat, and I'm focusing on driving that knee forward, keeping my knee in a good alignment over my toe, driving it as far forward as I can, and then using that quad to extend my knee and drive back up. I'm getting ankle mobility, taking it through its full range of motion. I'm getting a good quad pump, and I'm getting some health for my knee as well, okay? So there's some really good options for yourselves to try and implement. If you want some more sort of advice and you want me to do like a mobility protocol, feel free to hit me up. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate feedback. Hit the like and subscribe. I'm going to try and do these a little bit more and more often. Thanks.